Hey, what up squad, it's your boy K-Flow, and in this video I'm going to show you how to replace the serpentine belt and check the pulleys on your Toyota Tacoma. And make sure you stick around to the end because there's some things that you should know when you're doing this job. Now let's get this thing started. So for those of you guys who are new to this channel, my name is K-Flow and this channel makes the most in-depth Toyota Tacoma DIY tutorials. And according to my analytics, 91% of you guys who watch these videos actually are not subscribed.
Are you serious?
So just do me a favor and smash that like and subscribe button, baby. It really helps the channel out. And lastly, all the parts that I'm going to be using in this video are actually on my Amazon page, so check that out at amazon.kflow-script.com. Now let's get to the truck.
Now let's use a 12mm socket to remove the 4 bolts on the skid plate. So that's what it looks like, guys, right in front of the motor with the serpentine belt. So now we'll have to remove the tension off that serpentine belt by pinning that tensioner. So we'll use a 14mm socket to remove the tension from the belt, just like so. So we pull it like this, and you get a 3/16 drill bit into that hole. Just like that, guys. And now we can remove the tension from the belt. Just like that. Now we should be able to undo the belt completely. We'll pull it off tensioner. Pull it off this crankshaft pulley. Pull it off the alternator up here. Pull it off the power steering. Now we'll have it hanging down like so. So now in order to get it off the fan, we'll actually have to route it onto the fan blades and spin that fan by hand and put that belt through each fan blade one at a time. Just like that. Now let's take a quick comparison between the two belts, guys. Here's the old one, guys. As you can see, there's a little bit of pitting happening on the inside of this belt. In comparison, this new one obviously has more meat right on that interior. Here's the back side of the old one. A little bit of wear, but it is still in pretty decent shape. I wanted to do this because this is still the original belt that the truck came with, and I've had the truck for over 7 years already. So now let's check how all the pulleys are doing, starting with this bottom idler one. This one still feels smooth, and there's no sound, so that's good. Now let's take a look at the tensioner one. It still spins smooth. Has a very tiny, very slight noise. It still seems okay. Now let's go on the upper idler. Yeah, as you can see, that one's really noisy. We'll have to replace that. Now this is the AC compressor. no noise, because this is actually a pretty new AC compressor, if you saw from one of my previous videos. And this alternator is also fairly new. No noise either. Let's take a look at the left idler. That one's quiet, still okay. And this is the power steering. Also still quiet. So let's replace this bad boy up here.
So I did have to remove one of the skid plate brackets on the driver's side to allow a breaker bar to swing to remove that one pulley. And you remove these skid plates using a 17mm socket. Now we can take a 14mm socket and a breaker bar to break that pulley loose.
So that's the pulley, guys, and that washer is pretty much toast. Look at that, it's corroded all the way through. Let's spin this. I'll put it right up on the microphone so you can hear it. As you can see, it's pretty loud. This one definitely needs to be replaced. And here's a new bearing. As you can see, it's really quiet. So here's the new one and the old one comparing side by side. Fortunately, I was able to find this washer from Lowe's. This is the same exact size as this one, as you can see here. The part number or SKU number for this from Lowe's was 38884. So that should be pretty straightforward for you to look for. So now let's install that new pulley onto the truck. That bolt we torqued down to 29 foot-pounds. So in order to put on the new belt, we'll just do the exact opposite of what we did earlier. This new belt's a little more rigid, guys, so just take your time when you do this. There we go. That belt is now completely on there. So we have the belt hanging down. Right now it's wrapped around the top of the fan. So now we can take this side and feed it around the alternator, like that. Then feed the other side around the power steering, like that. Push the belt back above. So now let's take this, make sure it's around the AC compressor here. Alright. Now we gotta take that belt and get it onto that tensioner. There we go. Now let's check to make sure that all the belts are seated properly on the pulleys that are driven. So that's the AC compressor, seated properly there. The alternator seated properly there. The crank seated properly there. Power steering seated properly there. And the fan seated properly there. Very nice. Now it would also be good to double check that the belt is seated properly, looking at it from the top of the engine bay. And as you can see, it definitely is. And here's the diagram so you can double check your work. And now we can remove the tension from that tensioner.
Don't forget to remove that drill bit. That's really important.
That's it. So that's what it looks like, guys.
Now we can install the lower skid plate bracket and tighten them down with a 17mm socket and torque them down to 35 foot-pounds.
And now we can also reinstall the skid plate. And these are just hand tight, guys.
So that's pretty much it for this video, guys. Before you go, here's some final thoughts and some notes for you guys to know. If you're just checking whether or not your pulleys are worn, you can literally just remove the tension off of that belt and go around and check the idlers by hand. There's enough slack on the belt for you to pretty much go around and spin each pulley by hand. If you are planning on replacing the pulleys, those pulleys are actually made up of 3 different pulleys, and you can buy them from Amazon as a kit, which includes the belt and also the tensioner. So that will be linked in my Amazon page, so check that out at amazon.kflow-crib.com.
So if you wanted to replace the pulleys individually, guys, here's a diagram of the pulleys as well as the part numbers. Just a quick note, guys, the pulley on the belt tensioner is actually a left-handed thread. So in order to remove it, you actually have to rotate that bolt clockwise. The torque to tighten down that tensioner pulley is 39 foot-pounds, and that has to be torqued down in a counterclockwise manner. The individual pulleys can also be found on my Amazon page. So if you go on my page, you'll see that you'll have the belt and the 3 different pulleys, and in the description it will tell you which pulleys are for what with reference to the diagram.
So you'll probably ask, when would be the best time to replace the serpentine belt? And to answer that question, the best time would be to actually just inspect it every 30 to 35,000 miles. So that's roughly at the same time when you're replacing your gear oil and your transfer case, front diff and rear diff. And you do your visual check to make sure there's no cracking, damage, and any other type of wear, including glazing on that surface of the belt. And if you see enough of these damages, then that's when you replace it. And here's a question from one of my subscribers, Daniel Borer. Yo K-Flow, I'm getting the sound of the belt squealing upon startup, especially when it's been cold here this last week in North Florida. So I'm thinking that the idler pulley is going bad. When I replace it, is the tensioner just an automatic amount of tension that places it on the belt when it's released and under tension? Or is there a way to tension or adjust the tension in the pulley assembly? So Daniel, to answer your question, the tensioner on the Tacoma is fixed. There are no adjustments that you can do. One way to solve this would be to use one of those belt conditioners. It's a spray, and you spray it onto the groove side of the belt to pretty much increase the grip on that belt. And these belts are actually grooved belts. So what happens is, on the driven side of the belt where it goes up against the crankshaft, the grooves get cut on that inside of the belt, and that's what continues to grip the belt as it's moving through the system. So if the grooves are too deep and it's already cutting all the way through, then it would be definitely a good time to replace that belt. So here's my suggestion. First thing you should definitely do is inspect and do a quick check of the surfaces of the belt to make sure there's no damage. Then you can remove the tension from that belt and just go around the pulleys and spin them to see if any of them are pretty much either worn or if they're making any noise as you spin them. So that at least narrows down what you can do or what you need to do. So I hope that helps. So lastly guys, I just want to let you know that I have new t-shirt designs on my Teespring store. So make sure you check that out at teespring.kflow-crib.com. And all the proceeds pretty much help me make better content for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and until next time, peace.